welcome to Radio Out There. I'm Barry Eaton. What about the supernatural? Are you aware of it? Would you like to increase your awareness? Okay, my guest this week is Dr. Fredrick Woodard and his book, Developing Your Supernatural Awareness. Fredrick, hello and welcome to Radio Out There. Lovely to talk to you. I'm in Australia. You're on the east coast of USA, but here we are, thanks to Zoom. Lovely to meet you.
You too. Thank
Now,
you for
Fredrick,
having
we're
me.
going to be talking about your book, Developing Your Supernatural Awareness. But first of all, let's introduce you to my audience because you're a psychologist, and supernatural and psychology don't always go on the same page in my experience. So tell me a little bit about yourself, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, an interesting thing is I had a lot of people tell me about their experiences, and I've been trained not to judge people unless there's a reason, like there's something that's going to be a problem. And so when people would tell me their stories, I would say, wow, that's amazing. That's incredible. That's real. That makes sense.
Mm.
And I remember one time I had a guy that he he was telling me a story when he was sitting there about his father had like gone into the next world and was like laying there talking to his sister, and then he came out of it and he said, my God, I was just talking to your sister and she had two little babies and they called me grandpa. And the son-in-law was sitting there and he broke it down into tears. And he
Mm.
said, we had two miscarriages. We never told anybody.
Mhm. Well, that would have pulled you up.
And those things kind of, they kind of make you think that, well, something could be going on here.
Mm. So were you a bit of a skeptic or a non-believer before this? Did you need to be, I won't say converted, but did you need to be convinced?
I think at the very beginning I was a skeptic, but I have an open mind. So when I heard things from people that were realistic, I started to have an open mind, and I had a few little experiences myself. For example, one was I went into a store in my undergrad to buy a soda, and I was thinking about my uncle who died in the war when he was 17, and I was thinking, well, maybe he's not really there all the time. Maybe that's just a bunch of garbage. And then I went to get my soda, and in my change, they gave me a World War II nickel, which is incredibly rare to get.
Mm.
And when I saw it, I just kind of went, wow, maybe I should have an open mind
Yeah,
and just not make a judgment right now.
yeah.
And another one was I was in the Concord Library trying to connect one of my grandfathers who was in the Revolutionary War and his father, and I couldn't connect them. And there was these three old men sitting in the corner talking, but they were mumbling. You couldn't really hear them. And when I was done and I didn't know what to do, I heard one of their voices in my head say, check the land deeds. And I went and I ordered the land deeds at the Mormon church in Nashua, the Mormon place in Nashua. And the land deeds came, and not only did the land deeds come from Pittsford, Vermont, but there was one that said, and selling Widow Mary, selling to her son, Captain Amos Woodard, which is incredible. They don't normally put relationships down.
Mm, mm. Yeah, you mentioned that in the book, and I thought that was fascinating because it was almost as if the universe was saying, all right, Fredrick, we are going to show you a whole lot of things to be able to help you understand the supernatural. So I think it's fascinating. Some
Right.
wonderful stories. We'll get on to some more. But let's talk about the supernatural to start off with, because what's the difference that you have found in your research between the supernatural and the paranormal?
Well, there isn't much of a difference, but the supernatural is stuff that can't be explained by science. It's
Yeah.
not scientifically capable of being explained. Maybe some paranormal stuff is human, and then that would be the difference. But supernatural stuff is just not explainable by regular science.
So is that a problem? I know it's a problem for scientists, but should that be a problem for the average person out there? Just because science can't explain it, science hasn't been able to explain everything over the years, but eventually, when there are breakthroughs, yes, science does admit, oh, yeah, we didn't know that, so we'll change our mind. But science is only, I've used it as a quote in one of my own books, science is officially a body of knowledge. But a body of knowledge is not contained in some kind of bucket or box. It's always expanding. So do we just push it away and say, oh, science can't handle that, so it can't be right?
Well, science is so slow. That's one of the things that I see. Science in a lifetime, you'll move 5 feet.
I'm glad to hear you say that. Oh, that's wonderful.
But
So,
it's true in some cases. In other cases, things happen that great minds um, will will help you wake up to something that's incredible. But those are not everyday experiences. Like the neuroplasticity thing happened in our lifetime, where they proved that brain stem cells are created all throughout your entire life, so you could create a new pathway in your brain at your age, my age, and later.
mm,
And they didn't believe that, so a lot of the scientists, the editors of the journals, wouldn't even publish the articles that were justifying this work.
yeah,
And then one editor did, and then books came out, and then everybody opened up to it.
very well. So these days, what they do is dismiss it as misinformation or disinformation and try and rubbish it. Or you're a conspiracy theorist
But
if
the
you
sad
believe in
part
that.
was, in this particular case, what had happened was all the old timers were taught that no, you don't have new brain stem cells and you don't have new brain cells.
Yeah, yeah,
So they believed that what they were taught was true.
yeah.
And that was part of the problem. They were taught something that wasn't true.
No, fair enough. So, as a psychologist, I should say, sorry about that. As a psychologist, what do you find the benefits are for people who may have been skeptical and have then opened up their mind and maybe also opened up their heart to be able to take in these stories and understand what are the benefits of
The
opening up to?
benefits are just what you just said. That's a benefit all by itself. To have an open mind, to
Mm,
be more open to new experiences is an incredible asset to have. Many people don't have an open mind,
yeah, no,
and the
no.
people that don't have open minds can't grow.
Mm.
They
So, you,
can't move.
go on.
They can't move beyond a certain level of awareness. And when you have an open mind, you can see more, you can wake up to more.
Mm,
And an analogy I make in my book is that, before there was all the videos and everything, when it snowed in North America, in South America, people wouldn't know that it snowed. They'd
mm,
have to believe somebody that told them they saw snow.
mm,
And if they didn't believe them, they wouldn't believe them. But it was
mm,
a matter of faith. It was a matter of believing something's possible.
yeah.
Or, if you've never seen a red bird and somebody told you they saw a red bird, well, maybe they did.
Yeah,
But you'd
maybe.
have to be open to that.
Yeah, very true. So, have you found that in your research, and you've got a wonderful array of stories and anecdotes and whatever in your book, have you found that people have been transformed in some way once these events happen to them?
Yes, yes, that's one of the 2 points that I make that about experiences. One is that to have an internal experience and then have it really happen in the external world is something incredible.
Mm,
And then the other is that it transforms people. They really become transformed. by the experience. It changes them. They become more open. An example in my book was a woman that she went to the laundromat. She wanted her husband to go with her, and he wouldn't because he had stuff to do. And so she went there, and then she saw this man in there. She said, "Oh, good, I'll be safe." Well, no, she wasn't safe. He knocked her out and he raped her. And
mm,
when she was knocked out, she went to the other side. She went to the light, and she wanted to go, and she wanted to bring her kids. And the person standing there said, "No, you can't bring your kids. And if you go, you're going to have to redo your whole life." Well,
mm,
she came back. She didn't want to go because she couldn't take her kids. She wasn't going to go. And the other thing was that she wasn't going to die anymore. She wanted to die, but she didn't really want
no,
to after that.
no,
It was
no,
a big experience. And I met her in her older years, and she had no desire to die.
no, no. Well, I found in my research and interviews over the years about NDEs, near-death experiences, that every single occasion, their life has been totally transformed when they come back in.
Yes.
So
Yes, that makes sense.
have you done much research into NDEs?
I've had some, not no. The cases that I have are the cases that are in the book, and then about maybe another 50. But I have just limited. I
Mm,
don't. I don't. I had what people presented to me, and there was only limited. There's only so many stories you can write
mm.
down and transcribe and question and question.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. Do you find then that the people whose stories you've told, and you've told many, many stories in your book, were they all patients of yours, or did you have to go out and do some
They were all
separate
research.
research?
They were all research
That was
patients.
research.
They
Okay.
were. They weren't patients. They were research subjects.
Yeah, so this was a project that you decided to go out and write this book or accumulate all this wonderful information.
Yes.
Mm. So what
And
was it?
really, I think that I had decided early on that I wanted to be a psychologist because I believed that it would help me understand better and
Mm,
grow more than any other profession could in as far as helping people and being able to understand more and also research to do the research that was required,
mm,
to try to research something and do a legitimate job. I know that my book, the original guy that suggested phenomenology was back in the 1940s. His name was Donald Snag, and he didn't do it. He used a couple examples, but he didn't do the work. And the work was a lot of work. It's like I remember a couple of students at my PhD saying, "Oh, you're going to do that? That takes forever." Like they wouldn't do that because it takes too long,
no,
you know. But I did, and I thought it was a valuable asset to the
mm,
to the field to help people wake up and help people become more aware.
mm. Well, unfortunately, we are in the age of instant gratification, aren't we? So that's going to happen more and more, where people don't want to do the research. They want the
Yes,
answers there
I
for them.
saw. I actually saw a news program that was quick, but it was this guy, and he had all these business students, and they were all on computers and stuff, and they were sitting there, and he said, "You know, the fact is that they think they can get everything instantly because they're so used to just clicking a button and having something pop up, but business takes years to make something
Mm,
successful." And so that was a good point that he made, that point
mm.
that it does take time to have a successful business.
But surely life is the same. Life does not happen like that unless you pass
No.
on, of course, in an early stage. But life is all about developing, moving on, experience, making mistakes, learning from them. So if we have to have this instant gratification, what is the point of knowledge? What's the point of
Well,
experience?
yeah, there was another doctor that I went to training and he was Cotter, and he was from Boston College or Boston University.
Mm,
I can't remember. And he was talking about ADHD, and he was saying that television enhances it It's like
Mm.
switches the subject too quick, condenses it down to a couple of words, and it just enhances ADHD.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Well, have a look now at AI, what that's doing, and how people want to have instant answers. They don't want to do the research. They want a chatbot to do it for them. And this is happening in education. It's happening in artistic areas. My very first book that I wrote called Afterlife, that's been ripped off by AI and an illegal recording put out there. So this is something that people just want, some instant thing, make some money, move on, do something else, they're bored. So as a psychologist, what is the importance then, do you think, of developing our interest, our knowledge in areas like the supernatural and saying, okay, we'll put science to one side. Let us have a look at the unknown. What's the benefit of that, do you reckon?
Well, that's a pioneering benefit. It's like
Mm,
something new that you haven't that hasn't been done, and it's like all fresh and new, and it can lead to new ideas and new experiences that can change everything.
mm, mm,
But
mm,
what that is, I wouldn't say that I know. I do know that unfortunately the whole process of paranormal stuff is is kind of scary in a one way, because if we can prove that spirits exist, then what are we going to try to catch them? And when we try to catch them, are we gonna try to hurt them? Like, oh, you go here and we'll hurt you.
Well, do you really believe that? I mean, I'm a medium, amongst other things. So I know that the spirit, which is a vehicle for the soul, is indestructible. That is our soul. That is us. We're just having a little human
Yes, I
experience in this
agree. I
body.
agree. So I don't think that's possible, but I think
No.
that's where humans would
Well,
try to go with some humans would try to go in those areas.
mm. Well, let's talk about messages because you put some wonderful messages across. And I mean, I've been getting messages for about 30 odd years now, and it's changed my life. I had them over the weekend, just before we started our little chat here today. So this happens all the time. But let's talk about the afterlife then, an area that I've written 3 books about, done a lot of research, and obviously you have too. So what about messages from the afterlife? How do you approach this whole area?
I just have an open mind to what people present to me,
Mm,
and I listen to them with an open mind. And and unless something comes up that makes me question them, I respect what they tell me. And there's lots of experiences like that, that happen even when people are dreaming or sleeping. And I know one woman that she went on a sleep and she entered a friend's house, and he was playing guitar and he had a gun and he shot himself, but she screamed his name
mm,
and it moved the gun, and he just grazed himself instead of killed himself. And she told him the story, and he said, "Look, that was all true."
mm. It's stories like that. I mean, I've had them happen to myself. I've been woken up I get woken up a lot at 3 a.m. because that's when the energies are the lowest. And I have messages from the other side, all sorts of things. I've just finished writing another book. And some of the messages that came through, I would then have to make a note of it because the next morning it was something that was given to me from the other side. Now, whether it came from my guides, whether it came from my spirit guide, friends, family, whatever, it doesn't really matter. But we are in contact with people over the other side. So do you find that there are more and more people now starting to trust that we are in contact?
Yes, I think that I believe that I do become more aware of that and
Hmm.
open to that. And I remember I had a mother and her daughter who was like 8 come into my office one time, and they came in and I said something about tigers, and they looked at each other and I said, "What?" And they said, "My God, we were talking about tigers for the last half an hour, and you bring it up the minute we walk in the door." And I had no idea that that I that's what was going on, but they told me. Or a little girl that I was seeing that cared about me, and she one day said to me, stop thinking about men in dresses. And there was no sign that I was doing that, but I had a man that day that was in his 50s, and he had said that he liked to wear dresses, and it was making me think about it all day. So there was no physical evidence of this,
No.
but it was true.
Mm. So
It was really true.
where do you believe that voice came from? From your own guide or what?
I don't know. I don't always know where
Mm.
it could have come from her. She could have picked up on it and understood,
Mm.
read my mind, or saw what I had gone through earlier, or
Mm.
the girl and the mother. I could have easily have just picked up on the fact they were talking about tigers,
Mm.
and I said something about tigers,
Yeah.
but I didn't realize it.
Yeah. Yeah. It happened to me last week, actually. I was interviewing somebody, and all the way through, I kept on getting this, asked him about donuts, talk to him about the donuts. I thought, no, I'm not going to talk to him about donuts. We're going to talk about something else entirely different. So at the end of the interview, I said, look, I've been having this nagging message, and this was after we finished recording. I said, and I said this message, talk to whoever it was, I won't mention his name, about donuts. Does that mean anything? He said, yes. He said, yesterday, would you believe, I've been doing a whole lot of work around donuts. Now, I wouldn't have thought of donuts in probably 20 years. But somebody fed that information. And I'm pretty sure I know who it was because other things we talked about then. But I wonder how many of us get this. I've trained as a medium and whatever, so I understand this. But I wonder how many people get messages like this and just, that's rubbish, ignored. Don't worry about
Well,
it.
The Matrix, the first movie with uh, what was the star's name? Keanu Reeves. He there was a scene where he said deja vu. He said, I just saw a black cat and then I saw it do the same thing. And then Trinity said, they changed something. That's what happens when they change something. Well, if he didn't bring that up, no one would have known.
Yeah.
And so I think being aware sometimes is an important thing. Being
Mm.
aware of what's going on around you and being aware of things is really a part of the process of waking up. And I
Mm.
remember one time walking with a professor friend of mine and my two German shepherds, and about 100 yards up, two bobcats crossed the path, and I was the only one that saw it.
Ah.
He was too busy trying to convince me of something, and the dogs were sniffing the ground, so they didn't see it either. But I
Mm.
saw them, and they just kept going because they weren't interested in us.
Mm.
But
Mm.
I noticed, and I said that's a good sign to
Mm.
just be able to see things.
Yeah, yeah, very true, very true. Now, you talk about messages coming from all sorts of, shall we say, energies on the other side. We've talked about how people who are passed over, they can talk to us, and they do all the time. Uh, but what about things like angels? You mentioned angels in your book as well.
Yes, there was a story that somebody had told me about two angels holding on to a demon that was trying to hurt a
Mm,
girl.
that was a strange story.
Right, and but the thing is, her cousin had seen that and then told the grandmother, and then the woman called up and verified it.
Mm. Yeah, she did. And that is one of the stories that really stood out for me in your book. Two angels trying to stop this demon. They were lovely. Well, you can tell the story about how the angels were and how the little demon was, because that was very colourful, wasn't it?
Yes, yes, the demons were huge, and
The
the
angels were
angels
huge.
were
Yeah.
huge, and the demon was small, but the demon had a lot of power,
Mm,
and they used all their strength to contain him, and they did. They successfully contained him.
mm, mm. Now, I personally accept and know and ask for and receive help from angels. But I still have to be skeptical about demons. Are they something that It's almost like a Hollywood thing. So do you believe that demons do exist?
I've never seen one, so I
No,
don't know.
no, me neither.
But human people can be like demons.
That's for sure. It would name a
And
few poor people.
I remember my German Shepherd, my oldest German Shepherd. I've walked her on the rail trails for 7 years, and on two occasions she growled at two single men walking by themselves. Two different occasions
Mm,
when they were between 30 and 40 something, and she growled at them, growled. And I noticed it because she loves to meet people. She's very friendly, but she wasn't friendly with those two
with them.
people.
Now, dogs typically do like that, aren't they? Mm. Now, the other area that covers what I guess a lot of people do think is supernatural is uh, beings from other worlds. Call them aliens, call them whatever you like. So, do you put that in the supernatural area, or is that just
Yes,
something that science at the moment doesn't want to talk about?
I put it in the supernatural. I had the experience of one woman telling me about something that looked like a dark thing that would move around and in an office space she was cleaning, and it scared
Mm,
her a little bit, and she talked about that. And so I include whatever people tell me that is valid,
yeah,
is relevant.
yeah, no, that's fair enough. Fair enough. Um, so, how do we tell the difference, do you think, between supernatural and natural? Because can we always just put everything
Well,
down
it
to
might
being,
be that they're all natural, but we don't
yes,
understand it yet. We
my
don't
point.
understand it yet. And so I can't say that it's natural when I have no proof, but I can say it's supernatural, meaning it's not explainable by
Mm.
science at this point.
Well, I guess if you look at the word supernatural, super just means above or outside of natural. So there's still a natural element in the supernatural. It's just, as you say,
Right.
unexplainable. So,
Right.
do
And it's not, go ahead.
no, no, no.
It's not what I would say is it's not understood. And
Mm,
that's part of the problem. It's not understood yet. And maybe we're not at the place where we can understand it. I joke with people and suggest that maybe 2,000 years from now, they'll look at science and go, oh my God, they medicated them.
mm,
Because by then they might not need to.
yeah, no, no, fair enough. You write in the book about those people who do develop their abilities in the supernatural area. And I guess I have to put mine down with astrology and mediumship and psychic work and whatever. Uh, you must be responsible. But for the average person who doesn't train, I mean, I trained, got diplomas and whatever in these things. But for those people who just develop naturally for one way or another, how can they be responsible? And what does responsibility mean?
Well, I used examples in the thing for reasons to be responsible, to be aware,
Mm,
to like the guy that talked about how he would go into crowds and steal energy
mm,
because people didn't protect themselves.
yeah, yeah, that's quite
And
fun.
that's not okay, but what does that teach a person that that either had energy taken from them or didn't realize what was going on? That would teach them I need to protect myself.
Mm, mm, mm. Yeah, no, that's very true. Very true. Now, what about things like witchcraft? We haven't talked about that. You mentioned a little bit about this, but witchcraft, now that to me is supernatural. That is, I don't know, out beyond the limits of what I would regard as spiritually beneficial, shall we say.
Well, it all depends on who is describing it and what they're saying about it. There's Wiccan women that are healers, and they're positive people, and they've never done any harm to anybody. They only do good.
Yeah, but that's the Wiccan, and there are many healers, as you say, over the years. And I know in one of my books I wrote about a past life I was taken back to as a wise woman of the tribe back in the 10th century. And yes, we've all had experiences like this through healing. But I'm talking about the ones who have the covens in the middle of the forest and all that sort of witchy poo stuff that I find it almost like, I don't know, just
Well,
a bit of an act.
it's hard to understand. I remember once when I was working as a counselor in a prison, and this guy told me a story about how he kept having visions of people coming at him whenever he wanted to leave the group that he had allowed them to get him to connect to.
Mm,
And I would keep trying to tell him to protect himself and to keep going with it. But there's good and bad out there. There's both are out there.
that's for sure. And I think that's where we have to be aware, don't we?
Yes, and that's where the responsibility of doing the right thing comes.
And
Trying to
that's
do
why I
what's
thought
right.
that chapter you wrote was very, very appropriate because people who are reading the book can be developing, not even knowing perhaps that they are developing, but to be able to be aware then. It's like the thing I was taught as a medium or as a psychic. You don't walk up to somebody in the street and say, oh, by the way, we haven't met, but I just had a message for you. You don't do that. That is irresponsible. If you walk up and,
Yeah, there was an interesting story I did share. There
which
was a
one?
girl that was pregnant, and a guy did walk up to her, and she wasn't pregnant enough to show, and told her she was pregnant, and that validated it for her.
Uh-huh.
And
Right.
so it was those were one of the moments that something like that was good.
Mm-hmm. Now, for those people who are developing, learning about their supernatural abilities or even interests, how do you work with skeptics, people who are real cynics? How do you work with them?
That's very hard because they don't want to believe any of that stuff is real. And I've had
Mm,
experiences where people have told me that they don't believe any of that stuff.
mm,
And when I'm doing psychology, it doesn't matter because I can stay away from it and just work with the psychological.
mm. Yeah, no,
But when it's spiritual, I try to not get involved in negativity.
fair enough. All right, look, Frederick, it's been wonderful having a chat with you. Your book, Developing Your Supernatural Awareness, is released now. And have you written this book as a just a general story or outline for people to be aware of all of this, or what was the real purpose?
Well, the other thing I did in the book was I have exercises at the end of each chapter in chapters 2 through 9 that kind of help people grow a little bit and work on things that were presented in each of those chapters. So, um, so that can help people wake up or help them get ready to have an experience if they haven't. Or the other people that have had experiences, it can help them prepare for more. Or it can also, the stories can help them feel connected to other people.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your book, and thank you so much for your time. And I'm sure that there'll be a lot of people who'll get a tremendous amount out of this book. So thank you for writing it.
Thank you very much for having me, and I appreciate everything you've said.
That's my pleasure.